I know I wrote a book, right? It's called Buy a Game and it's free. Click the link down there. You got it.
DreAllDay.com.
Good morning, everybody. Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. The sun is shining bright on me. Y'all can't see the sun right now, but it's super bright. Can't even see myself right now. But what we're talking about this morning is how to improve at anything. Basketball, business, public speaking, getting bigger weights, bigger muscles from lifting weights, getting in better condition, sales, anything you want to get better at. Doesn't even matter. This applies to every single thing. It's a simple 3-step process if you want to get better at anything. And this topic right here, if you want to hear me talk about this in even more detail, all you need to do is subscribe to the Work on Your Game podcast, not the YouTube channel, the podcast, Work on Your Game podcast, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, everywhere else. It's every single day. I go into detail on these topics, even more detail than I do in these videos. So if you want to learn more about that, this is straight personal development, it's education. You don't even need to go to school. Work on Your Game podcast. And let's get into our points. How to improve at anything in life. And again, it doesn't matter what it is, who you are, how old or young you are, or where you're from. This applies to everybody. Number one thing, if you want to improve at anything, you got to take stock of where you really are. This is the hardest point. Actually, no, they all pretty hard. All three of these points are pretty hard. This is a very hard point for a lot of people. Where you really are, especially when they're talking to other people. People often, I found that people will exaggerate their situation when they're talking to someone else to kind of make it sound better than it is. Here on YouTube, a lot of basketball players leave comments on my videos telling me what their game is like and then what the situation is, and they're trying to figure out why they're not getting the opportunity. Like, man, I'm great at handling the ball. I'm a pretty good shooter. I play really good defense. I'm a great teammate, yet I didn't make the basketball team. I'm like, well, that don't make sense. If all of that's actually true and you've proven it somewhere before, it wouldn't make sense that you didn't make the basketball team. So you're probably exaggerating your abilities. And usually that's what happens with people when they're talking to someone else. But when you're talking to yourself, because this is all an internal conversation you're going to have, a private, personal conversation. Where am I really? If you're in business, how much money do I really have? How much money are we really making every month or every year? Or what is our real financial situation? If you're trying to get stronger and get bigger muscles or get in better condition, you got to ask yourself, where am I really right now? I need to do a strength test, whatever your strength test is going to be, so you are clear on exactly where you are. Because if you're lying to yourself, it's one thing to lie to other people. If you're lying to yourself about where you really are, you can never get to anywhere else. You can't get to another point if you don't know where you're at and you're lying to yourself about where you're at. If you're in Boston and you want to get a flight to Seattle, but you tell the airline that you're in New York, there's no way you can ever get to Seattle, because the flight leaving New York has a seat for you, but you're not in New York. You're actually in Boston. So you got to tell yourself the truth about where am I really? Where do I really stand right now in my life? Where do I really stand as a basketball player? What is the real reason why I didn't make the basketball team? What am I really missing from my game right now? And if you're not getting what you want in any area of life, there is something missing from your game. I'm going to say that one more time. This is very important. If you're not getting what you want in any area of life, there is something missing from your game. Everybody understand that. If you don't have what you want, I'm going to say it again, there is something missing from your game. Not the coach's game, not the customer's game, not your girlfriend's game, not from everybody's, your family's game, your mom's game, your game. There is something missing. And that something, I guarantee you, is covered on the Work on Your Game podcast. You need to do yourself a favor, invest some time in yourself, because it's free, and listen to that podcast. So the first point is, where am I really? You got to get clear on where you actually are. Don't lie to yourself. Very important. Don't lie to yourself. Point number 2. Now you got to ask yourself, what's the ideal? What exactly do I want? This is a hard point because most people don't even know what they want. Most of the people watching this video right now, you don't even know what you want. You out there working every single day. You out there taking all these efforts, maybe working very hard. You have no idea what you want. So where are you going? What are you doing all this for? You're doing this because you're doing all this hard work because why? A lot of people don't even know where they're going. Don't even know what they want. They may know vaguely what they want, but they don't know in detail. They never ask themselves, hey, what specifically do I want? They may say, well, I want to go play in the NBA. Well, what does that mean? When you want to make it to the NBA? What kind of contract do you want to have? What position are you going to play? And maybe there's a certain team that you want to play on. Is there a certain year that you're going to go to the NBA? How are you going to get to the NBA from your middle school team? What high school are you going to play for? You going to play AAU? What college are you going to go to? Think about the path. You got to lay it out in detail, ladies and gentlemen. You got to have a detailed plan of what you want. A vague vision Your subconscious mind doesn't pick up on vagueness. It picks up on specificity. It's always hard for me to say that word. Specificity, being as specific as possible. Not Pacific, like the Pacific Ocean. Specific. The more specific you are, the better chance you are going to get your ideal. Now understand this. Here's the simple tip to making sure you're as specific as possible. You got to sit down and write this down. You got to map the whole thing out. What do I want? You might know what you want. You want $100 million. Okay, right now you got $10 in your bank account. What has to happen between here and there for you to get there? Lay it out in detail. I'm gonna do this first, and I'm gonna start this business, or I'm gonna work at this job. I'm gonna put away this much money every year. I'm gonna get this much interest. I'm gonna invest in this, and it's gonna return this. You gotta lay this stuff out in detail. What is the ideal? What is the ultimate outcome that I want? So the ultimate outcome does not just mean that thing, that $100 million. I'm gonna play for the New York Knicks and make the All-Star game. The ultimate ideal means everything between where you are and where you want to go. You got to lay the whole thing out and you got to be able to see it. If you looked at it, it looks like a script to a movie because you got every step, every detail along the way is covered. Now, to say that it's going to happen just like that, probably not, because you're probably not going to factor in any setbacks in your ideal. But the clearer your picture is, the easier it will be for you to make adjustments if and when it doesn't go the way you expected it to go. But you got to lay out, this is point number 2, what is my ideal outcome? Now, once you get clear on the ideal outcome, point number 3 is going to explain to you why you need to do all of that detail that I just said. Here's point number 3. What's the first thing I can do right now? The first thing I can physically do. What action can I take right now at this exact moment that moves me along this course? Repeat that. What is the action that I can take right now at this very moment that moves me along this course? If you don't have an answer to that, then point number 2, your plan is not specific enough. See, let's use a basketball player as an example, because basketball players always comment here like, I'm gonna get drafted in the NBA draft, or I'm gonna be the greatest player ever from my neighborhood. Okay, listen, I'm not telling you that you can't. But if you're where you are now, let's say you're sitting the bench on junior varsity and you're talking about you're going to be the MVP of the NBA in 2030, okay, cool. Now, what's the first step you can take right now to get from where you are to being the MVP in 2030? I mean, there's a million different things you could do. I mean, you can come up with a scouting video. You can go get yourself an agent. You can go start applying to colleges. You can go join an AAU team. But, oh, wait, you're only 12 years old. You can't do any of that stuff. So what you need to do is map out that complete plan. The complete plan will say, what's the next step is I need to get better at dribbling the ball with my non-dominant hand, because I can't dribble with my left hand to save my damn life. So that could probably help me get on the basketball team next year. So you got to be very detailed, not only knowing the ultimate goal, but every step in between getting to where you are right now. And here's the challenge as I go back through these points. You have to be so clear on where you are so that you don't skip any steps. Because let's say you're a basketball player, and in order for you to get to the MVP of the NBA, your skill level needs to be at a 100, right? But right now, your skill level is at a 16. You need to get from 16 to a 100 over the next 5-10 years in order for you to be MVP of the NBA, right? But when you ask yourself the question, where am I really right now? You say, well, I'm a 38. But you're actually a 16, but you tell yourself you're a 38. See, this gap between 16 and 38, you will never cover this gap because you're lying to yourself that you're up here when you're really down here. Therefore, anything you do in point number 2, laying out your plan, is not going to work because you're going to be trying to do the work of a 38 level player when you're actually a 16 level player. You're not ready to even do this work. This work is not even going to work for you because you haven't laid the foundation down from where you were 16. So you got to be so clear on where you are right now. And I really need to emphasize this. I can't emphasize it enough. Be clear on where you are. Point number 2, lay out in detail every single detailed step that you can think of between where you are and where you want to be. And point number 3, what can you do right now? If you don't follow point number 1 and number 2 properly, it's impossible for you to get the answer to point number 3. If you don't follow number 1 properly, then it's impossible for you to do number 2 properly. So all of these go together and they go in order. And if you follow these 3 steps, I don't care if you are an athlete, an author, a librarian, you could be a prostitute. I don't care what you do for a living. You could repair broken phone screens. Whatever you do for a living, whatever you do for life, period. Whether you got a job or you don't got a job, you can own a business, you can be retired. It doesn't matter. You follow these 3 steps, you can get better at anything you do and everything you do, but you must follow them specifically as I told you. You skip a step, it's your fault. Again, Work on Your Game podcast. You want to hear more detail of this and learn how to do this in even more detail, Subscribe to my podcast. Do yourself a favor. Invest in yourself. And this don't even cost you money. I'm talking about investing your time. If you ain't willing to invest time, you ain't serious. Work on your fucking game. DreAllDay.com.